Make sure you silence your phones. Silence your phones.
You like start a thought, and I'll kind of type that down, and then I'm kind of so that you'll know what's going on, whatever. No. Do I hand this to you? They said write down concerns, and somebody would come around and pick it up.
You take it. I can make sure it gets there.
Thank you.
Ryder, can you also do the scroll?
I won't touch it and I won't let anybody move it.
No
We
worries.
spent a lot of time figuring out just right.
And still failing.
Are you gonna
Good evening, everyone. If I could get your attention, please. We are going to get started to respect everyone's time. Hello, my name is Micah Tweetmeyer, and I'm president of the Durham Association of Educators. And thank you for spending your evening with us. The priorities that we will discuss today have been democratically determined by our members after holding over 40 meetings across the district and with thousands of staff input. Engaging staff at this capacity is something that only a large organization can do, and is something that we're really good at doing. We are happy to see master's pay, transportation supplements, certified supplements, bus route changes, and key fobs addressed in this budget. But there are other economic and non-economic priorities from workers that are not included, including budget transparency and enhanced worker rights. Unfortunately, we don't have 8 months to work out the details of these priorities, and there is a lot of urgency because the board will vote on the budget later this month. These priorities represent what our students need most and what workers need to improve their working conditions. This is the best information available for what workers want and what they think will improve staff retention and students' learning conditions. We know we are short on time this evening, and we hope that our invited board members had a chance to preview the priorities. As we move through the agenda, we will ask everyone here to keep their comments to 1 minute, and Carlos is going to help us be timekeeper. There, he will put up a red card when 1 minute is up. The Meet and Confer team will introduce themselves at the beginning of each article section. And to start us off, we do want to ask each of the board members to briefly introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Harrell Goff, board member at large.
Hi, Jessica Carda-Auten, currently serving as vice chair and represent District 3.
Good evening, y'all. My name is Bettina Umstead, Board of Education member.
Thank you. And we are going to move through the articles in order, except after Article 1, we'll talk about Article 8, and then it will go back in order. We wanted to prioritize some of the most important and urgent priorities at this meeting.
Thank you all for coming and being here. My name is Shmaya Truitt, and I am truly honored to serve as the middle school representative for Meet and Confer. And I have been a social studies educator at Durham Public Schools for the one and only Carrington Middle School ever since 2011. And prior to that, I worked with Atlanta Public Schools as an educator and social studies teacher as well as social studies facilitator. And so I am very proud to have 28 years of service in education. So as you can tell, I truly love teaching. The members of DAE believe it is imperative that Durham Public Schools, DPS, operates with full transparency. We're going to look at Article 1, budget transparency. Okay, all right. Transparency is a foundational pillar that fosters trust within our DPS family, as you all know. In alignment with Article 1 of the DAE platform, we advocate for a quarterly budget report that includes details for the district departments and individual work sites, accessible to all staff members. And furthermore, we believe it is essential that information regarding all salaries, incentives, and bonuses offered to district employees and administrators be readily available to all employees. These transparency initiatives are vital to building and maintaining trust. When transparency is prioritized, you guys, distrust cannot take place. So we are asking, do you support quarterly number one of Article 1, quarterly budget versus actuals reports for the district departments and work sites that are available to all staff? 2, make internal audit information available to all staff, including up-to-date information on the fund balance and all other sources of district funds. And 3, transparency around all salaries, incentives, and bonuses offered to district employees and administrators for any reason. Do we have your support? That is the question.
I appreciate the question of do you have our support? So I am one member with a, we can't do anything except as a board. And so I'm here to listen very carefully, and I have read this, and to go through each of them and to ask questions and to have the discussions. But I'm going to be very careful not to say what I am and am not supporting, because I have to weigh all of this information with the information that we also have from the district. So there are a lot of things that have to be considered. To say that anyone, it's kind of a universal principle, I feel, that transparency is vital and important. So I'm not going to say I'm not for transparency. The specifics of what's in here, though, I can't say I'm fully going to until I can weigh all of the information. Especially, I'm speaking as myself, in the first cycle of a budget season. We need to understand, how everything works and to make sure that we're processing all the information fully. So I really, yes. Okay, is it a minute? Oh, that's the minute.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
Yes, what Joy said, and I guess it would be helpful for me to know, I think it's important for all of this to go through administration, which is why it will be nice when instead of this, we have a Confer process whereby y'all are talking directly to administration, seeing what's possible, and then deciding together, bringing something to the board. Because I guess my question is for administration, how challenging, what does it take to pull this information? It sounds good. I would love to see this information that you're asking for. So I think I would like to know more about your vision for what this looks like. Like when you say available to all staff, ideally, if you were to have exactly what would be most helpful for you, where is that located then? And how is it available to all staff so that you can use it readily? And also, what's your vision for how each of these pieces of information is most useful for you, if you could name one?
So a lot has been covered already by my colleagues, and I agree with what's been said already. I'll just add, our audit is presented at the board meeting, and so that is a public information where we get the report, we get a report on what's in our fund balance. They also share whatever findings they might have. So all that's reported at the board meeting. There's a packet that goes along with that. And then we are also working on a salary administration policy to help around that number 3, transparency around salary incentives, bonuses, transparency around how it moves from year to year, transparency around promotions, around reclassifications, all of that. I've been on the board since 2016, has felt vague sometimes, and so I have to get really clear about what that looks like. And so the policies come twice to the board, but we keep sending it back because there's more work to be done with that. So love y'all's input on that policy. It's on our website, and if you search salary administration on the board docs, board meeting page, you'll be able to find that.
As a follow-up to your question, or your two comments, what are you willing to commit to asking administration for with regards to sharing budget items with us? We did see as a part of the 165 slide budget presentation the other evening, lots of spreadsheets with various numbers, but it's very challenging to know exactly what all those numbers mean, as I'm sure you guys are aware of as well. So if tonight's not an evening where you can commit to requesting like number one and number two, what type of information would you be willing to ask administration to share with DPS workers?
That sounds like a much more doable ask. So what I'm here to do, like I have this, I'm here to study with you. So I'm looking at this, I'm writing down questions, and this whole thing I'm willing to take and to ask. For each one of these articles, what is out, where are we, what is going on, I'm willing to do all that. So there, as we walk through, there are some questions that I have that I need clarity on. There are questions like all of these things. The thing that I'm excited about, or the thing that feels good, is that there's nothing on here that we haven't been discussing, that we haven't been talking about, or, So, and these talking points are excellent. So I want to walk through each one and really understand their questions that I might have, so that I can further be prepared to have this dialogue.
Similarly, all of this, in reading over this, feels very reasonable to me, and I'm willing to and interested in taking this to administration to see what's possible. I guess, so specifically, like around number one here, budget versus actuals reports for the district departments and work sites. And would that be on a website, or like, so I can get more, I think what their question and response is gonna be like, what is that? Do you want a report that's sent via email to union president? Do you want it sent to all staff members? Do you want it available on a website? Like, do you guys have a vision for what, again, would be most helpful? And so that we know what to ask for.
I was just looking for my, oh, we're on a battery. A 9-volt battery. We know everyone has on hand. You can hear it, okay? Yeah, we're great. But, I think what our members would want, and I'm sure all the workers and families and community members would anticipate, especially being an entity that is receiving public funds and community funds, is that those are shared at a public board meeting for everyone to get to see. And when cuts are being made to certain departments, there's actual clarity and discussion, maybe during meet and confer sessions or at a board meeting to discuss the rationale, for example, like why there needed to be a 15% cut across the board of every school this year. So,
Yeah, I think this is, I really appreciate that, that's helpful. I know last year during our budget process, we talked a lot about why that was necessary to withhold that 15% because we weren't sure. where things are gonna land as we were making those decisions. So I think too, there's a question of, what are we doing in a board meeting, and then is there a follow-up also to make sure that everything is clear about what happened and transpired at that place? I did ask staff earlier this year, because what I'm hearing is transparency around how money is spent, but also understanding all of the details. And so I think the district rolled out dollars and decisions, which I think is a good start, but not all the way where we need to be. I really would prefer to have in-person meetings where we were able to sit down and walk through and talk about this, what this means, that means, to get really clear around what the budget is. And the budget booklet this year is, if you've ever looked at our budget booklet in the past, it is different this year. They're kind of resetting and trying to get it more clear, because I think in the past it's been more clear around what departments have. So I think these are good asks, and I think we need some time to make progress.
Great, so before we move on to the next article, it seems like the three of you are willing to check back with administration for what type of information they would be willing to share and when that could be made available.
Is there a timeline on like is this now? Is this like we're hoping for 25-26 school year? Like what's your,
Well, ideally, you
I'm
would.
sorry, I feel weird with my back to y'all, but I asked about a timeline. A timeline.
We're very scrunched right now with the timeline, obviously, as, you know, you all might be faced with making decisions about what to spend money on or what not to spend money on. Ideally, actuals versus, spending actuals would be important to make those decisions, to develop budget priorities. Like you asked a question the other night about does the spending align with the strategic plan? And it would be, nice to know about, I'm sure you would want to know like how much spending corresponds to what strategic plan and that sort of thing. So if you don't have that information already, it's probably too late for this week, or if you're voting on this budget next week. So we would, if we're going to start meet and confer meetings in October, hopefully by October, the CFO could have an idea of how much is in the fund balance starting off the school year and how much each department and each school is budgeted, so that as the year goes on, that information can be shared widely. I think whatever timeline is going to get us the best information.
And I will just add, some of this is the board gets really high level. We don't have every single detail on every single department and all of that. So I just think it's an important ask, and we'll have to think about the right way to go about it. Because we have a real high level on the budget booklet gives a lot more detail around departments, or at least it has in the past. We need to move back to that. But that's just we might need to keep playing around with it to make sure we get to the right place with information.
Yeah, thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us, and thanks to everybody else as well. My name is Goff. I am DA's EC rep on the Meet and Confer team, democratically elected. I'm an EC special programs teacher at Givens. I've been a DPS employee for 10 years and a 13-year DPS student. Right off of all this budget talk, I want all of us to take a look at Article 8. DPS workers demand that no frontline positions be cut to pay for district's budget mismanagement. I can make the case, I think the case is kind of clear, but the adults on the front line have to actually be there to provide to the kids what DPS's mission is to do. Provide that safety, provide, get them to and from the building, get them fed, get them taught, right? This would also include the positions that have remained unfilled the entire school year. It's really unclear from Thursday's budget presentation and what we know so far, what positions are being cut. It's clear positions are being cut, but we need more information, maybe year by year comparisons on the specific cuts being proposed. And a no frontline cuts budget is possible. I'm going to pass it to my colleague Allison to talk a little bit more about that.
I'm Allison Swain. I work at Riverside High School. I teach social studies, and it's my 12th year at DPS. So just to follow up on Ghosh, what's being proposed for next year's budget is actually a reduction in force, a RIF. But it seems like it's being framed as a change in allotment, and just want to reframe that. I know some schools have gotten information already from admin, others have not. I know my school, for example, is projected to increase by over 60 students with our enrollment next year, but we will be losing 4 certified teaching positions and a media coordinator. So there's 6 comprehensive high schools with 2 media coordinators. All 6 are being asked to cut one of those media coordinator positions. This is a moment where we're moving into austerity times. There's a lot of unknown. It's scary. We've lost the ESSER funds. That's true all over the country and in North Carolina. However, we also know that from our union siblings in neighboring counties in our state, Guilford County School Board already approved a budget that does not cut any staff positions. Asheville City School Board approved also a no cuts budget. Buncombe County Superintendent has put forth a no cuts budget that maintains all staff positions as well. And counties surrounding Buncombe are also not planning on making frontline cuts. Those are just some examples, and just to point out that Asheville and Buncombe and those counties went through Helene and suffered a lot of the financial loss from that, and are still putting forward that ask to the county commissioner in those counties. And so the same question, will you commit to trying to get this done in this year's budget? Obviously, you can't make a commitment to vote right now, but the commitment is, will you try to get the information, and weigh this, because this is one of the top priorities for staff right now in our district. It's really critical. And just kind of following up on a couple of the budget transparency things, if you could pass this down. There are 2 documents, one for each of you. And one thing when it comes to, let me look at my version. Sorry, really quickly. One of the things that we noticed when looking at the budget proposed for this year, there is, from last year's budget, the table that had the exact number of positions allotted was included. This year's budget omits that. And so the top question on this sheet, we'll email you these questions so you'll have them and can follow up later, but the top question, how many full-time employees is the district budgeting for by position? Getting the actual table from last year's budget to be reproduced with this year's proposed numbers will then allow to make a more year-by-year comparison. And then all the other questions below, the information can be generated, but the first thing is that actual table with the number of positions. It feels really important to have the information before voting on the budget.
Thank you for this. I think I'm comfortable asking for, well, number 1 on this page, absolutely. And then I think is related to what Ms. Umstead was saying about the way the budget was presented in the past versus this year with our new CFO. So that feels reasonable to me and like important information. I'll say that in all of our communication, I think from the 3 of us and other board members, both in public and in private, it has been communicated by us that it is our strong preference that cuts be not made to frontline staff wherever possible. So, and I'll say from my perspective, that's absolutely my preference. I think we have the challenge of having a new superintendent, a new CFO, and a year where we're facing the ESSER cliff. And I think they're trying to figure things out, and we are trying to clearly communicate, as the board does, our goals and our priorities and what's important to us, and then have them bring us recommendations based on that, which then we'll weigh in on.
Thank you for these targeted questions. Everything that Jessica has said, and I've heard it said multiple times, I think uniformly for many of us, that we feel that it is a priority to keep any collateral damage, anything that happens as far away from our classrooms as we possibly can. Like, we don't start there, we start on the other end and we work our way. So, I think, I'm not speaking for everyone, but I get the sentiment that everybody feels very strongly about that, and that we'll be working very hard for that as a budget priority.
I agree with we did not practice this before we came in, but I agree with my colleagues too on this. I do want to also just be honest that we realized this year we have more positions than we had allotted for in our budget. There are more positions in DPS than were allotted for in the budget. So you have to right size that at some point. And I think that is what our staff has been trying to copiously go through and right size. I hope that it does not impact schools, but we're already hearing media center coordinators. Last year, there were AP allotments that got shifted. So I'm clear that there's some things that are impacting schools. My hope is that we're making some tough decisions now, and we can fix that after we go through here and figure out where we can. But I just want to be honest and transparent. There are more positions than there were allotted, so that means you got to figure out how to realign those things.
And that connects back to our first discussion of the transparency and when you would like to know some of that information, because we found out about all those unbudgeted positions midway through this school year. And if the spreadsheets could be presented ahead of decisions such as this, because I think we're all wondering here, we've heard a lot of folks in the district say they don't want to cut positions that impact students, but all the cuts are going to impact the students. And, when you talk about, what's the other end of making cuts, that's a great question. And the also question is like, who is at those other ends, right? Everybody is touching the students in the school buildings or in transportation, and with those specifics that I know you all say you have a very high level understanding of the budget, which is great, but those are the decisions that are so critical to be a part of, and that you could be a part of them, and we could be a part of them and part of the discussion. And if nobody knows this information, that's a big problem.
So, yeah, when you said when nobody knows the information, all three of us went. What information is specifically?
How many positions you're budgeting for this year, how many positions you have, the spreadsheet that was different from this year to the last with the total number of school positions, or, for example, if it was announced at the middle of this year, right, that there were over 200 positions that were unbudgeted, that were not budgeted for. So I guess the question is, somebody
most people in the district didn't know that, right?
Yeah, I just want to also be clear, in our last meeting, and I would have to dig through my notes, we talked about the number of positions that were budgeted, and there were numbers given for the number of positions budgeted, the number of positions that were allotted. So, and as the transition of last year happened, I think we had new folks again came and figured out, there's some things that aren't lining up here, that aren't lining up here, and so we need to figure out how to change that. So I do think our staff is aware. I think they didn't produce this spreadsheet because, and I asked, I said, why does our budget booklet look different this year than it did last year? And the statement was, we need to reset and start over to be able to kind of make the, back to that department schedule, but they needed to start over. And so I don't want it to, I believe that no one has this information. Our staff does. And they shared a lot of this in budget presentations, and I think there's more work to uncover.
Before we move on to the next article, I would just ask, again, on this point, can you vote, are you planning to vote on a budget next week if you don't have all this information before?
Just a couple of additional things to say would be that I'll give a few. I don't think it can be understated. I recognize that it's frustrating that our district is still resetting right now after a year. But the fact is that it takes time for the problems that were created, that created the mess that we were in last year around this time. The root of that is still being uncovered and remedied. And I think we are ready for things to be in a good place. We have staff working hard to get them there, but that's still in progress. So yes, there are things that we'd like to see different moving forward with our budget, but also we are trying to be patient with our staff that are working hard. Also, it is true that frontline staff are incredibly important and those that work most closely with our students. And it is also true that if your district does not have a strong CFO and director level positions, your students will also suffer. And so I know that it is not popular to say that central office is important, but it is also true that we need all levels of staff. So yes, I commit to prioritizing frontline positions, but I also have to look and as a leader, recognize the constraints of the district and weigh that against other decisions that we're making. But I guess as more information is available, if you guys, what helps us is when you can share for us what happens, like which staff positions, more details about how this affects folks and which positions might be most important so that when we're making decisions, we have all the information possible and again, can weigh all of the things that we have to weigh.
We're going to go to Article 2.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Nisha Watson, and I am a proud teacher at Eastway Elementary. I'm a PE teacher, and I'm also a proud bus driver. I serve for the district. This is my third year. Thank y'all, appreciate it. And we also have another one. Introduce yourself.
Hello, how you doing? My name is Shamika Grace. I am a bus monitor in the transportation department. I work over at Harrell Road. I have been doing this for 11 years now. One of the things that I am standing here representing for my fellow co-workers. Is one of the things I would like for us to see is a $300 a month supplement for bus drivers and bus monitors, and to reinstate the $25 pay for teachers and staff that comes out to school to assist with driving the buses. And for us to get key fobs to be able to get allowed to go into the schools to use restrooms and to be able to go in the lounge and get something to drink if we need it and things of that nature, instead of having to stand outside for 5 and 10 minutes to get into a school. So those are my two things.
And I wanted to highlight that, of course, we know we are heavily reliant upon transportation all over the nation, in our schools, and in Durham as well. And the system is real fragile. We're losing drivers every week, unfortunately. And we have to retain these drivers in order to keep up with the demand that we have right now. Currently, my transportation coworkers, they do not earn personal days like we do as certified staff. I'm not sure if you all are aware of that. And the annual leave days that they earn, my coworkers earn, is used up throughout the year for holidays, of course. So we are asking, and teacher work days, thank you, coworkers. And we are asking for 3 inclement weather days so that they won't have to use up all their annual time. And in addition to that, 2 personal days for all classified workers. And this will help tremendously with those problems when we have inclement weather days, because unlike us, certified staff are able to work remotely, but they are not. They are not paid for those days. They don't have those days available. Thank you.
Excuse me, I had to revert back. Also, the reason why the $300 a month supplement will be good for bus drivers and bus monitors is because, I'm just gonna be honest, we don't make enough, and that will at least help supplement some of our pay from month to month, because most of us are living from paycheck to paycheck, so we don't get paid the value of work that we do.
So just to rephrase the question, this priority is asking if you'll commit to asking for 3 weather days, inclement weather days, and 2 personal days in the budget for transportation workers. That's drivers and monitors.
Yes. And I'm understanding the ask much better, and all 6 of these points I can definitely bring forward.
Yes, I feel the same. This feels reasonable. I guess I'm curious to know what we know about the barriers. I know we've absolutely discussed the key fobs at board meetings and tried to push for those, but I don't know if there's more information about what folks have heard about what's in the way, and also the personal days and the inclement weather days. Curious to know if that's just simply a budget ask, or if there is, like, I think maybe that's set by the state, and then we would supplement with that, so it would be under the local budget. I need to learn more about this. So, my other question was the substitute pay. I think you said reinstate, and I wasn't here when it was in place, I don't think. So when, do you know when? All right. So substitute pay was in place last year, and it's not in place this year.
It was $5. It was $5. It went down. It went down.
Right. Okay, so it's not.
Because I think the funding came from COVID, from what we were trading.
Okay, that's really good to know. I'll absolutely ask about that. Thank you.
I feel like I'm disappointing you all, because I did not know we were gonna get these questions in advance. I don't have clear answers for y'all.
And so I think we can definitely ask and inquire about this. I'd be curious about what the budget implications are for the personal days and the weather days. I think there will be some cost for that, and so we need to have staff cost those things out. But I think we can definitely ask these questions. But I apologize, I feel not prepared. I apologize.
Yeah, of course, I want y'all to answer about all this. I'm fighting for all of this, but I really, really, really would like y'all to, like, the 2 personal days and the 3 inclement weather days. The inclement weather days I might understand, but at least the 2 personal days, because as far as from my understanding and talking from other coworkers in DPS, the teachers and everybody else get that as well. And if we are part of the Durham public school system and we work for the Durham public school system, I feel like we should be allowed to have that as well. So our time is not like used up, because the annual time we get by the time a month come, or from teachers' work days, or they even use it for inclement weather, that by the time it's something coming up that we really, really need to do, we don't have the time to get paid. So that's a day we're not getting paid, and we can't afford to lose a day of pay at any cost.
That makes sense. Thank you for prioritizing that priority, and I think it fits in with what we've been discussing at the meetings, last week's meeting as well, about if we think about ways to incentivize bus driving, and thank you for reminding us of the bus monitors, what are all the options that the district could present to the board, and then what are the highest priority options? So thank you for sharing that as well here.
And I think I really appreciate you kind of prioritizing, like, start this one. It'd be helpful for the others too, if you were to like, please, this one is the highest priority. All of them are priorities, we know, for everyone, but if there's this one is the first one, please, that would be helpful for us.
An additional ask for finding out more information is that classified staff get sick and annual leave, but they don't get personal leave either. So we'd like to amend that just a little bit so that all classified staff would be given 2 personal days, like certified staff. So if you could take that request back, that would be super.
I think I can do both at the same time, just so folks know I'm an honest timekeeper. So, good evening, everybody. My name is Carlos Perez. I'm a social studies teacher at Durham High School, and I was elected to be our union's high school rep for the Meet and Confer team. I'll be speaking to Article 3. I think it's no secret that ICE is terrorizing students at all levels of education across the country. As a district, we have a responsibility to act. We have a responsibility to ensure a safe learning environment where our students are valued and protected regardless of where they come from. And if we're serious about this, we need to make it clear across the district that DPS will not collaborate with ICE. We are calling on DPS to prevent or restrict immigration enforcement on campus and train all appropriate DPS staff on how to respond to ICE agents requesting entrance to school property. As the son of immigrants and as a teacher with immigrant students who have come to me in tears out of fear that their families could be torn apart, this is profoundly personal, but I know that I'm not alone. DAE has hosted a training with CMNC on how to respond to ICE agents on campus, and we had more than 150 educators show up. Our coworkers are standing up, our students can't wait. It's time for DPS to stand with us and say no to collaboration with ICE. We're asking the school board to commit to keeping our students safe by adopting the 5 points that are listed here. Would you all commit to these 5 points that are listed for this article? And I should mention too, oops, I didn't, my time is up, it is up. 30 seconds, y'all, 30 seconds. The one we would like to highlight is that there's already a policy in place. If you look at point 2, policy 4321, this comes out of a campaign that DAE ran years ago. Really what we're asking for is to enforce a policy that's already on the books. None of these would cost anything, and it would benefit everyone.
Thank you. Absolutely support this article. And I had a question about the proof of enrollment letters. Could you clarify how those work and why they're important? I'm just less familiar with that than the other pieces of this.
Simply a letter that's printed out that says the student is enrolled at this school. And I think often students will come to me if they have a court case, for example, and they're requesting a letter. So, and in fact, we know, I know at least one DPS school, our just had those printed out for all students. So we can provide some more clarification about what exactly that school did, but it was a pretty simple thing for the school to do. And it just is a thing that can help, in case there's a risk of deportation proceedings, or just like a useful thing that could be helpful in these situations that some families have asked for. It's providing this to all families is one thing that could be beneficial.
Thank you. I heard that was happening at one school, I think it was Georgia. I didn't understand that, so thank you. And I look forward to talking more to get that fleshed out. But I support all of this. I do know that there was some, I believe that there were some questions about what happened to policy 4321. And what I know about that is parts of it were incorporated into policy 5120 when we transitioned the policy manual. So I'm going to dig more into that to see what pieces were retained and if any were lost that feel really important right now, and if we need them in the district, then that's something that I feel comfortable advocating for.
We'll take those thumbs up as you're all committed to Article 3. Excellent. On to Article 4.
I'm sorry, one more piece of that one. You all are, what my understanding is, the district has already provided principals with guidance for how to respond to ICE. It's my understanding that that is either hasn't reached all of the necessary staff, or it is not comprehensive enough, and it's also not reached the families that need to be reassured enough to send their children to school. Is that right, or is there anything else you'd add?
I would add that it's also being unevenly enforced around the district. So even if that information's been passed on, it hasn't particularly been communicated effectively, implemented effectively.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna speak on Article 4. My name is Angelique Parkstone, and I'm the cafeteria manager at Hillside, New Tech, Middle College, Early College, DPLC, and New Direction. Are you tired yet? I am. I am posing these questions. Do you think it's right that the workers who feed 80% of Durham's children 2 meals each day cannot survive on their one DPS salary? Do you think it's right that classified workers are asked to do more and more, like feeding additional schools without any extra pay? It is time for classified staff members to be paid fairly and based on the important work that they do. I would like to tell you a story of a burnout employee. She gets up at 6 o'clock to catch an 1.5-hour bus ride, 8 to get to work at 8. She gets off at 1. She rides the bus back home to change clothes, to get ready for her second job, to work 4 to 11. She does this every day because she doesn't make enough money to pay her rent, bills, and to eat for DPS. Just this week, she was so exhausted, she said and did something that was unacceptable behavior. When speaking with her concerning this matter, she shared that she was upset because she didn't get a summer position because of cuts. She was worried about how she was going to pay her $1,285 rent for June and July and about finding a summer job. She was also concerned whether or not she was going to get a raise and to step up for the 2025, 26 year. These concerns are felt by so many classified employees. Uncertainty is not a way to live. It causes stress. It causes serious health issues. I implore you to work with the Meet and Confer team and listen to recommendations on the 25-26 school year. I feel sad each time I hear someone say, we are not thinking of students. I have dedicated 28 years of my life to serving and feeding students. Even during the beginning of COVID, I put my own health at risk to run a program working with different restaurants to get food so that I could run a car line to feed students. Anyone who works in Durham Public Schools are here because they love children, want to see them succeed and grow to be successful, healthy, and happy. But you need to understand, we have bills. We must support our own families. We elected you to look after the students, but you must look after us too. We are your responsibility. We need your help. We need decent wages. In closing, remember, we are all here for the children, but we are here every day. A happy employee will have a better attitude. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for coming. My name is Kelly Mumford. I am an ECIA in the COPE program at Murray Massenburg Elementary School. I am the IA representative on the Meet and Confer team. I am here speaking on Article 4 as well. I've been an educator for 23 years, the past 2 have been at DPS. I am representing my classified coworkers. They're struggling, we all are struggling. Most of us need more than one job to survive. Even coworkers who dedicated decades can't pay the bills. That's why I wish that we can have a Meet and Confer team so we can sit down and talk with y'all to fix the classified salary schedules, to make sure that experienced workers are valued. Our most experienced educators need to be valued or they will continue to look for jobs elsewhere. And right now, the salary schedules are hard to understand and are consistently changing and barely go up each year. That's why I'm speaking to point 1, Article number 4, asking for a minimum 2% step increase for all classified pay scales. Our students can't wait and our schools can't wait. We deserve to have a say in our working conditions and to be paid a living wage.
Good evening, I'm Asia Pope. I am a data manager at Lions Farm Elementary, and I am the classified at-large referee at DAEs. But I'm also here to talk about Article 4. When it comes down to no freezing of veteran pay, that is above the maximum set by the state. We just feel that veteran educators and staff, we possess years of classroom experience, advanced degrees and certification. Freezing our pay at any time can feel like a penalty for being loyal, which can result in just pushing us out of the profession entirely. The children here need stability, which we can provide with leadership in our schools and mentorship for new hires. State set salary maximums often don't keep pace with inflation or the cost of living. So not adjusting those caps while freezing pay creates a real term, like, it's unfair and it's demoralizing for us when we're working year after year. And I've been here for 17 years. I've been in 5 different positions. And I'm constantly trying to move up because each position won't give me that pay that, and it's like, but I'm right here, like I've been here. Even getting into the position that I had, they tried to take away 2 years from me, and I had to get those 2 years back. I got it. I got my 2 years. Don't play on this. But it was a struggle, and I just don't. It just it leads to burnout. It leads to just being unappreciated, and that's why teachers leave. And that's why educators leave. We hate to walk away, but when it comes down to what we can and can't do for our own families and for our own mental health, sometimes we're gonna have to, and it should never be that way. So we're asking, will you support Article 4, addressing classified and pay compression that is coming from thousands of workers, or if not, will you wait to vote on the budget until you have the necessary information?
I'm going to stick my neck out here and be vulnerable and say, I don't know if we can wait. I don't know if we can wait to make a decision on this year's budget until we get this information. But I can say that we all value, I'm even say, wait, I gotta be careful when I speak. I can say I value our classified staff. I don't want to share too much, but can say as a former education family, as a teacher, having to work 2 or 3 jobs, and I know classified staff is working even less salary than that. So valuing all the humanity in what I'm hearing spoken right now. It's very important that we keep that lens on as we're making these decisions so that we can know how all of these decisions in the budget are going to impact people. That's the recurring theme that I'm hearing. And again, this sounds very cliche, but I can say that these conversations are being had. And how we can make that more transparent on how it's going, what that really is, and make it so that it's bite-sized. Sorry. This little red thing on the side of me, I've been tuning it out. I'm all here, and I look over, and I'm like, okay, you feel it.
Thank you for sharing your story. It's something that I keep in mind, but it's helpful to have reminders that each of our decisions impact each one of you in different ways. The notes about veteran educators, I think, are really important for us to consider, even when it's a struggle for our budget, because once we go out of the maximum, that means we have to absorb it locally, right? So, but the value that you named in keeping our veteran educators is absolutely clear to me. To me, it's not something that we should question. You're right, children need stability. It feels like you're getting a penalty for being loyal. It's demoralizing. Nobody wants to stay in a job where they can't move up, right? And that means like both recognition and also with pay. I also heard you, Ms. Parkstone, name that you have either heard explicitly or felt that it being communicated that because you're advocating for yourself and your colleagues that you're not speaking on behalf of children. I want you to know that I hear you. I do not believe that. I know that you put your heart, and you have for, did you say nearly 20-something years now? Nobody does that work if they're not doing it for the children. I mean, maybe, but I don't think. You're not doing it for pay. I know that. And I'll also, did I see you with? this is a particularly painful time to be having to be in a leadership position in education right now. And I know that you guys know that. It doesn't make what you're saying any easier, but thank you for reminding us to keep this in mind when we're making difficult decisions. I guess I did have a clarifying question. I'm sorry about the red sign, but the 2% step increase, we've talked about this at length during board meetings because we would like to know, we would like more clarity on what's planned also for classified steps. And so I'm assuming that when you say step, you mean step increase with salary increase. Because we talked about both. Step, like a number step going up, but without a guaranteed salary increase. But I assume you want to know that there's money attached to it and you want to see it each year.
Yes, that's correct. We're asking for a minimum 2%.
Between stuff,
Yes,
like on a scale?
between whatever is step, yeah. Rather step, so yeah.
To address the.
Yes.
It's my understanding, and I hear this, and it's my understanding also that it's challenging to be able to predict exactly what's going to be able to happen with the budget before we have the budget set by the state. That said, I am, as a board member, weighing this balance because I want to know what I'm making next year too. So I understand that you would like to as well.
Like I can just, again, ditto what a lot of my colleagues have said. I also want to say, I spoke at the board meeting a couple weeks ago, and I need to follow up around this uncertainty. Like, people should know what's going to happen next year, and you may not have all the details, but you need to know at least, like, this is what we're planning for. If this happens, this is what goes next. If not, if we don't get the full amount from the county, this is what will happen. Because I think in the chaos of last year, in the adoption of new salary schedules this fall, that some of y'all are on and some of you aren't on, it's not clear where people go. And clear is time. I think we need to be clear about what people get paid so people can plan for the next year. And I think our staff needs to do some more work to be clear about that. And I asked in our last meeting, staff brought certified pay increases for this year, and I said, we need to go ahead and start having a classified salary schedule conversations again. We need a study, let's go ahead and get that started, because we need to be ready for the upcoming budget cycle this year. I'm sorry, the time is up, but the compression has to be addressed in all of our schedules, especially in our, we talked about bus drivers and bus monitors the other day. This $8 between year 1 and year 30 is wild, right? Like, that should not be. So getting the process started to do all that. Oh. I just also want to add, a lot of the bonuses that we had in the past were all federal dollars, assessor dollars money. I'm sure y'all know that, and so I appreciate this ask, and that's something that we have to think about.
Just so you know what I was questioning in my head, I was trying to understand. So the budget that will come to us that we're voting on next week is the whole shebang, right? And then it has to go through, it goes out, then we have to present it, we have to, ask for the money from the county commissioners, and then we have to wait for what the state is going to, and then we gotta wait to see what the county is actually gonna give us, and then we gotta wait to see what the state's gonna be, and then we're gonna have another process to then, go back and look at all of these priorities again, and that's when, I'm assuming that's when, I'm looking at my board members too, like I said, this is my first budget cycle, I'm trying to make sure, I don't wanna, but then that's when we really get to say, okay, this is what's laid out, this is what it is, based on, all of that additional information.
I I mean, I think Durham Public Schools, thankful to our county, has been in a good position in the last couple of years that we've gotten fully refunded requests. So when we got that to the fall, we knew where we were gonna spend our money, because we got the money from the county. We had planned accurately what the state was gonna do, and we were able to do it. We gotta go through the same process this year, but I think also hearing again, how do we prioritize? We want a fully funded act, so we're gonna fight for that. We hope the state does a really good budget this year, and then we'll have to think about what prioritize.
Just to recap and maybe re-ask with regards to our priorities in Article 4 to address the classified pay compression. Joy, you said that you feel that you might not be able to wait. You might not be able to wait for this information that's requested before voting on the budget.
Well, my understanding is that we do have certain deadlines where we have to, legally, where we have to send it to the county commissioners. So, our new CFO has given us this timeline of when we have to get things done in order for us to, be able to stay within those guidelines. So, I know that this issue of classified pay compression is, all that's been shared. That's been a whole thing. So I'm wondering, will we have, I don't know if we'll have all of that information by our next board meeting in order to, before we have to move forward to the budget. That's what I'm saying. I don't know that. Doesn't mean that I don't think it's important.
I think part of what's challenging, in addition to the limited resources available in the state of North Carolina for public education right now, is that we are so late in the budget process, as you named when we were getting started. And one thing we discussed at our last meeting was the need to start these discussions early. We've had conversations at length about this, but I think Mr. Teeter even named, like, we need to start this conversation in July, because there's so much to flesh out for a budget, and so many different pieces to put together. So this is very helpful to hear the priorities, to hear what you're advocating for and why you're advocating for them, and helpful to keep them in mind. And there are constraints. I guess we haven't heard much about number 3 here, the retention bonuses. I could guess why that's important, but does anybody want to? May like to describe that a little bit in more detail so we could understand that well enough to advocate for it?
Well, the reason why I think it's important is because it would help keep a lot of our employees,
Because a lot of them heard what you were doing for the bus drivers. And we don't have anybody to, let's say CNS, we don't have anybody to advocate for us to give us attendance bonus or give us any kind of bonuses or give us retention bonus or anything. So we want that. That way we can keep our employees, because I've got people right now that are looking in my own cafeteria that are looking to go to Central. They're offering retaining bonuses to come there and work for housekeeping and to work for their dining hall, making more money. Duke is hiring at their dining hall. They're looking there. I've got one that's looking to go there. I want to keep my people. I've got good people. And this is going on throughout other cafeterias.
Okay, that's very helpful. Is there a reason that it's bonuses instead of a salary increase, or is that the same?
I would say it's the same. I would say the same.
Yes, I think we all agree that there's urgency right now with figuring out this information before the budget is potentially passed next week, and there is the deadline of May 13th to submit it to the county. I think what everybody here is trying to convey is how, it's hard hard for workers to wait to know what they're going to be making until next year. And also, the track record for the past couple years has not been kind to classified staff, understanding that all what they're getting paid. So one of the reasons why this is such an important priority for our workers is kind of hoping from all the events that have passed last year into now that there would be some changes made and some more clarity made before a budget is voted on, because that was the excuse that was made when the classified pay debacle was made. That the information wasn't provided before the budget vote. We'll move on to the next article.
Thank you all for being here. My name is Sonia Lopez. This is my 5th year with DPS, and I'm a social worker at Lakewood Elementary and Forest View Elementary. I'm here to talk about master's pay. You guys are reading that. Social workers are being stretched thinner than ever with recent federal changes and the recent cutting of co-located funding for uninsured and underinsured students. While the recommended standard ratios for counselors and social workers are the same, in DPS, the social worker ratios are almost 3 times higher than that of our counselors. Our caseloads are unmanageable, and our pay is significantly lower than our student support team members. We are facing the very real possibility of an exodus of master's level social workers to DPS this year. So I have 3 questions for you guys. Dr. Lewis's budget for next year includes extending master's pay to social workers, but not everyone. Will you support extending to everyone who would have qualified before 2013? The next one is, we are concerned with the number of social workers in the proposed budget. Inaccurate numbers were used to justify leaving folks out last year, or this year, I guess. Can you commit to not leaving folks out of master's pay due to district missteps next year? And then lastly, in November, Dr. Lewis committed to bringing a plan before the board in 4 days. It has been over 4 months. Our staff deserve an answer. Will you support holding a vote on master's pay for this year?
You can send us these questions afterwards. I have and still support master's pay. And from my perspective, what we were aiming to do last spring was restore it to what the state used to do, right? So that's what you're naming here. What has been challenging is getting, as you know also, getting accurate numbers of folks who might be eligible for this, to get accurate budget numbers for us. I don't necessarily think that that's an obstacle. I think it's something that's made this more challenging. One thing that was proposed in recent meeting, the administration wouldn't come back to us with this, was the idea of requiring staff to add their master's degree to their license. I would love to hear, while I have you here, and maybe this is a bigger conversation, but is that something that you would be in favor of? Because if we are looking to expand master's pay and that would help administration do that, is that something that would do more harm than good? Or is that something that makes sense?
Yeah, I think we would be in support of that. I think that's, from my understanding, I think we need to talk about it a little bit more. But I think from my understanding, most of us have got onto our license. So that's something I would want to make sure with our team.
That's helpful. Oh, and I also wanted to name, it's been incredibly helpful, all of the research that you've done and shared with us, including what you said, I think as recently as last week, outlining the differences between Chapel Hill, Carrboro, Wake County, Durham, and Charlotte, as relates to both master's pay for social workers, for other staff, and other key factors about the districts that might influence how many social workers are needed. So, thank you. Yes, I would continue to advocate for this.
We'll also continue to advocate.
We'll continue to advocate. I think I asked in our last meeting, what are all the other positions that might qualify? And hopefully we can get a number on that, this week.
And move on to the third one.
Thank you, board members, for being here tonight. Thank you to community members for also being here and watching. My name is Haley Filliger, and I am a third grade teacher at EK Pope. I have been teaching at EK Pope for the past 10 years. I don't anticipate leaving anytime soon. I am the elected elementary representative on our Meet and Confer team. Tonight, I want to speak to an article that directly impacts all of our students every single day. Clear job expectations, protected planning time, and fair extra duty pay for all staff. You can see these outlined in Article 6. When teachers and support staff have defined roles, predictable schedules, and fair compensation for the extra work that they do, it creates consistency that our students need to thrive. But when schools are short-staffed, when middle and high school teachers are pulled from planning to cover other classes, when instructional assistants are moved last minute to sub, or when custodians have to clean twice the space with half the team, I could go on, there are so many instances. It's our students who feel this disruption the most. Learning environments become less stable, relationships become much harder to maintain, and critical academic and emotional support is harder to provide consistently. Students notice when their teachers are stretched too thin, and frankly, we are stretched too thin. They feel the effects of this instability and it impacts their learning. That's why we're asking for printed annual contracts with clear roles, breaks, hours, and planning time, which is a norm and literally any other worker sector. Reasonable limits on non-instructional duties and fair pay for extra responsibilities, whether that be teaching an extra class, covering a caseload, or cleaning an entire school while being short-staffed. Again, those are just a few examples. My direct ask for you board members is this: will you commit on principle to supporting these priorities, printed clear contracts, limits on non-instructional duties, and fair extra duty pay for the sake of every student who deserves a stable, well-supported school?
And so I'm writing as you're speaking. When I read this about the not receiving printed contracts annually, that took me back a little bit. I hadn't considered that could take place. Definitely want to ask about that. Again, hear everything that you're saying and can advocate.
Yes, same, it does feel pretty standard to have a contract that outlines what you're expected to do when you have a job. I absolutely hear you. I'd say for each of these, like the question that comes to my mind that I plan to bring to members of administration is, what are the barriers to putting this in place? Like, what are the barriers to this happening? Is it will? Is it budget? Is it staff? Like, what do we need to navigate to get to these points? So thank you for elevating them for us. I will name that the extra duty pay, this is a good time to be talking about that because we are in the middle of working on a new policy. I think Ms. Umstead referred to earlier, policy 7502. We talked about it at the March 13th work session, and that was the first read of that policy, and it includes some pieces of extra duty pay that now I think I'll be thinking about a little bit differently now that I have this extra information.
Well, not much either, but I appreciate y'all lifting this up. I think these are some practices that we need to start thinking about implementing, and it might take us some time to get up and running, but similar to Ms. Carda-Auten, I want to know what can we do to use it.
To speak to the question of what that actually looks like. I've been teaching, like I said, for 10 years. I've had a paper contract once. And that was when I started teaching, and it was a 1-year contract. We have been told that we have 3-year contracts, or we have 5-year contracts, but we never actually see a contract. So essentially, I don't know what my job role is. I don't know what my actual duties are. I know that I'm a teacher, and I know that every single day I'm going above and beyond whatever that contract would probably say. But as I said, in any other sector, we would have a paper contract that we could refer to, and that is just a bare minimum. So that's to answer that specific question.
One follow-up, or anyone get electronic contracts? Does anyone? Okay, thank you. I know there are electronic contracts out there, but I just want to know.
So to just make sure we understand kind of how you all feel about Article 6, are you committed to checking with DPS administration regarding printed contracts with regards to access to extra duty pay, which does not seem to be clear across the district for many employees, how or who is eligible and when and why, and for setting potentially guardrails around the duties that educators across all departments have as a part of their job.
I would also just like to add, I think we're past like having to start to think about these things. Like these are things that have been long-standing issues in Durham Public Schools, and I appreciate that acknowledgement. But simply just beginning to think about it is not enough. These are things that need to happen now. These are commitments we need before we leave for this school year, right? This is less of an economic ask and more of a, do we have a commitment moving forward that this is a priority for y'all? So I just wanted to uplift that.
Thank you.
Truth be told, there is not anything in this document that doesn't feel urgent and important. What I can do is take all of these, and I like how Ms. Carda-Auten put it, and really go back and see what are the barriers. Like that's something that I can do. I can say, what are the barriers to these? And how then do we communicate what we are doing and what we plan to do more transparently for our staff. That is what I know I can say confidently that I can do. That's the work that I can do. So the question keeps coming back. Well, are you committing? Are you committing? Everything so far that I've heard each article is these, the people have spoken. These are very, I mean, they are the things that are really pressing. I want you to know that we're in agreement. I'm in agreement with, I'm in agreement with all of these priorities. These are definitely priorities. The question for me is, again, I like how Ms. Carda-Auten proposed it, is really asking the questions and being able to publicly communicate, well, what are the barriers and where are we with this? How do we make it more transparent? So that's why, I'm hesitating because it keeps coming back. Are one of these more important to me than any of the others? No, I can't say that at this point. Because they're all very urgent in my head. I hope that helps.
Yes, I'm committed to working towards these, and I hear the urgency. I'm frequently frustrated with the pace at which things move. Sometimes it feels like we're trying to ship the Titanic of legal movement, and I hear you that it feels like it's too slow, and they can't.
I just agree, and I think, this will be something that we'll have to give to administration and ask, you know, like, what's the feasibility of this today, or in 3 months, or in the future? Like, if I was doing the work, I might have a better answer for you, like, well, you know, it'll take me this time to do this, but I think we'll really have to give this to our staff and help them figure out, you know, what's possible and feasible, and what the timeline is for all of it. But I also just want to echo here the urgency, because you should know, you know, be clear about what's gonna happen next year.
I think I appreciate that, and I also just think we're public school workers, right? We're teachers, we're bus drivers, we're cafeteria workers, and every single day, we're being asked to figure it out, and so we're asking for a commitment that you are going to figure it out, and that you're with us on that, and that we're going to move forward in that way. So that's the commitment we're asking for.
Just want to clarify, are you all prioritizing the articles, or are they all equally important from the perspective of BAE right now?
When we organized them, we did put them in an initial prioritization. But obviously they're all very hot. They're of our platform that we developed this winter. These were the top 8 priorities from our entire platform for this year's budget. So we'll move on to Article 7.
I'm gonna be really brief with this one because this is not, doesn't have economic, well, I don't think it's related to the budget this year. Just love my notes. Okay, so if you look at the grievance policy one in your articles packet, it's the longest one. That is partly because it is the current DPS policy, and then we tracked changes to show the changes that we're suggesting to strengthen the policy. And so we're not gonna dig into this one right now because we need to move on to some stuff that is more important in this moment. But just to kind of speak to what a grievance policy is, it spells out the process that workers go through if their contract is violated. It usually spells out employees' right to bring a representative or coworkers with them to meetings with supervisors or management. And there are 2 key points I want to really raise for y'all, like without the current policy as written in the DPS policy book, allows for union representation at the boss's discretion. Our proposed policy guarantees that right to have representation in the grievance process. So instead of it being at discretion of supervisors, it's a right. And then the current policy only allows workers to file individual grievances. We often face common issues that ought to be addressed together. It just empowers workers to divide us when we're dealing with a common issue. And so the current policy is weak because it prevents workers from filing complaints collectively or with representation. It leads to an environment where grievances are very rarely submitted, and we as workers often feel intimidated and unsupported in the process. So our proposal is to strengthen that, to have a much more robust grievance policy that allows for multiple employees to bring collective grievances if necessary, and to provide for union representation in meetings with supervisors and HR. We believe that email me if you have issues is not enough, and that all DPS employees deserve a transparent and equitable process for formally handling workplace issues. These are standard workers' rights that are already guaranteed in Lawrence, Kansas, and many other places. So just, this is like a visual. Can you thumbs up if that sounds like something you're committed to looking into and getting as much information as possible to work to strengthen the grievance policy? Like, can y'all thumbs up, board members, if you can commit to looking into that and try to commit to getting the policy strengthened? I see 2 thumbs up.
I can look into it for sure.
And Bettina is committed to looking into it. Thank you guys. So wanted to move on to the final one. I'm going to pass it to Micah. But I wanted to say, back to the budget. These questions in the table will email y'all, but that first question, how many full-time employees is the district budgeting for by position? That's information that feels critical to have prior to making a vote on the budget. It is information that the district does have because our admin were emailed it already school by school. And so that question number one on the sheet. At the last board meeting, the CFO provided the number of total employees, but did not break it out by position. And that's one of the pieces of information that we're asking you to get prior to a budget vote. As well, the fund balance has not been shared. And so I'm gonna pass it to Micah.
I'm sorry, was that number 9?
We're actually going to, due to time, pass over number 9 for tonight. This is
What you were just saying.
what Allison was talking about was that table that she gave you with the positions. And the CFO provided total staff, but could not provide more detailed information. It did not. Hopefully. So as we're transitioning towards the end here, educators came up with these priorities and thousands are ready for action in order to see these improvements happen before summer. It's time for action for our board members. And we appreciate you being here and listening, but workers and families need to see what they need to see as action. And there's a lot of discussion this evening about having this urgency and the tension between this urgency and not having some fundamental information to adequately understand the budget that is going to be coming next week. So will you commit to not voting on the budget until we all have this transparency and especially information about the frontline positions and the fund balance?
I hear why you're asking, but it feels like putting us in a reasonable position when we have a deadline that we have to comply with. And when this is coming to us right now, which is right before the deadline. Also, we don't have the information. The fund balance is not known right now because we're still in the audit process. So are you open to shifting your ask, or is there a different?
Well, I guess the ask would then be, do you think it's important to understand the fund balance before voting on the financial responsibility of this district?
I think if you watch our board meetings, you've heard our board members ask about the fund balance and the status of the audit multiple times. And we, staff are working eagerly to get that done. And so I think we have to walk and chew gum kind of at this time of really figuring out how we prepare and meet the statutory deadline that we have. There's a statutory deadline that the board has to submit our budget, and our agreement with our Durham County Commission is to do it earlier than that, and we're already behind. And so I think we are navigating those different pieces and need to be able to submit the budget and do this audit and figure out what that number is, and hopefully we can have it really soon. It's vital for us to be able to know what the number is, especially knowing still knowing the different parts of this process to know what we're gonna get from our county, what the state will also do. So I think we're doing both of those things.
Yeah, I also cannot say definitively that I will not vote for the budget without, I still have to process a lot of decisions. Sorry to have to say that, but I will commit to, like, I'm seeing these questions, and I know some questions that I need to ask now, to be better prepared. I'm also very, I'll use the word anxious to have our Confer process needs to begin in October. I'm anxious to see everything become more transparent and for us to be well informed and be working on these processes so that we don't have to continue operating in these cycles. All I can say is with grace.
We all do understand the deadlines and the urgency. May 13th is not next week. Next week is April 24th. And so there is a lot of time, we feel, for you to ask staff for these questions. And it's really important when we think about wanting the budget that our students do deserve and our workers do deserve, and how we will support the asks that you'll make of the county and when you make them. And just like last year, advocate for historic huge budgets that get us a step closer to what everybody in the district needs and wants. And I think what's been clear this evening is so much information is not known and might not be known by next Thursday that this budget vote could be pushed to May 8th and we would still easily make the deadline for the middle of May.
I also want to just lift up that it's not always that the information is not known, the information is not clear. It needs to be able to be clear, and we need to be able to be understood on bite size, so the information could be right in front of us, but if it can't be translated and we can't articulate it, then, so it's not the same thing as it not being known. We want to make sure that it's clean. I want to make sure that it's clean and clear. I do know that the staff is working very hard, trying to figure out how to make it more transparent. We've been asking this over and over, so the information is not just that it's understood and everybody can understand it. So that's what, I want to be careful with saying that it's not known. It's not clear. And I need time to process.
And I think it's important to once again acknowledge that this process here is imperfect and highly flawed, and I'm eager to get to the process that should be in place, which is where DAE sits with administration so that we don't have to keep saying, with this, like getting into all of these details is not the role of a board member. We need to have a general understanding and make clear decisions about the budget, but the conversation that y'all need to be having, and I hope starts happening very soon, is between y'all and administration, and then you come to the board with administration being fully informed about ERO's priorities, and then something comes to us ready to go. And then we can weigh, again, with the important feedback from them. So I just want to acknowledge that this just feels, I understand why it's being done right now. I'm frustrated that we don't have a process in place already that makes this more effective and efficient for everybody.
I do hope, I am looking forward to a series of meetings where we're able to dig deep into the budget and other conversations and figure out how we improve the district. But I also just want to add, I hope that like it comes in a collaborative spirit, and I think that, there's push and pull on each side. So there's a deadline that we have, there's a statutory deadline, there's also a memo of understanding that we have. Okay, so how do we figure out what the path is moving forward with both sides of sets of information? And I think that's how we're gonna move best moving forward. Of like, here's what I want, here's what we need, here's what we have to meet, and we figure out what the path is moving forward. I recognize the urgency of all of these priorities, and I think figuring out how we get them done, how we prioritize, and what yes or no is gonna help us in the path moving forward. And I do think it is a series of meetings over time to make sure we can get all of this done.
We do hear a lot about how it could be done, and how it could be, and how it should be, and information we would want. And if the majority of workers and the majority of the board want it to be done a certain way, and want that information, and want that transparency, we believe that it could be done. I think, kind of pivoting to the meet and confer process, and we understand that it would be wonderful if we had already 8 collaborative meetings with DPS administration ahead of a budget crunch like this. And on Thursday, there was a part of the policy that was changed, and the changes were not tracked regarding ERO certification. So when that first reading was rushed and the second reading was waived, and the changes were not clear to the board or to us, in B2, Dr. Lewis's version took out third-party certification and added that EROs must submit rosters and names of their members to be certified to the superintendent. So this is a violation of privacy, subjects workers to potential retaliation, is potentially illegal, and there's nowhere else that a union member has to turn over their rosters and names to their employers. We think that the only way to make this policy workable and to repair the harm that has been done between workers and the district is for DAE and Dr. Lewis to come back together one more time with a mediator. And would you support getting Dr. Lewis and DAE back together so that the district can unite around meet and confer either on and bring a united policy either the 24th or the 8th of May? So the ask again is, would you support DAE and Dr. Lewis coming together one last time to develop a policy to bring back to the board?
I support DAE and Dr. Lewis getting back together, but not to create a policy, because we have a policy. We have a meet and confer policy, and that is a huge celebration. Can that policy be amended and changed? Absolutely, it can. I believe that I don't want to stop the process. Like, why go back and create a new policy? Go back and undo that victory, instead of working with that and correcting the needs as we go. So I don't want to undo what has been done. I don't want to go back and rehash that ball that's been kicked down the road for a year and a half now, something crazy. I think those conversations can continue to be had, but at this point, there's a lot of healing that our school system needs to do. There's a lot of relationship repairing, a lot of dynamics that we really need to be unified at this point. So we have something to work with, and we need to work with it, and then figure out as we go how we use those amendments. But I do not want to undo the work that has been done. Regardless of how we got there, we got it, and I feel like we need to move forward in a unified way to make changes with where we go at this point.
had my head pretty deep in these policies over the past year, and each of the versions. They live in my dreams sometimes, and I'm wondering, and I'm looking at the May 7th, I'm wondering when the certification piece was clearly in the policy. So it would be helpful for me to know more. I hear the reasons for that, and they seem to make sense to me, but I want to know, it would be helpful to know what language is appropriate, because I don't remember seeing that before.
It was agreed upon in our previous Confer meetings, that a third party would certify ERO membership. And so, all of the DPS, administration's versions up until the one that was sent ahead of the meeting had that third party language in it, so we had agreed on. And so that there were no tracked changes for that section of the policy, which is why they didn't show up as changes. So I guess maybe, to ask a slightly different question, since May 31st will be here pretty soon, would you board members commit to an amendment that goes into effect by May 31st that would change that part if the policy is already completed?
What I see is, again, it would be helpful for me to have some more time to think about this and to see what language is being proposed, because what I see in the DAE March 7th version is language about certifying, but doesn't say third party. So if I have more concrete information about what you'd like, then that would help me to advocate. So I think I do hear absolutely the concerns about track changes, and I hear the concerns about, and maybe actually, though, for the benefit of all of us up here, to explain more about why it's important for the third-party certification.
The policy that we did send ahead of the board meeting last week has the language that we wanted in the policy that had been agreed upon by Dr. Lewis and his team.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you. And then, we've talked at length about what it might take for DE to come back to the table with Dr. Lewis. Do you want to share any more about what you think it might take? Because and we've had multiple conversations, and I've seen the exchange about where I think I have an idea of what the barriers were, but it'd be helpful for you to flesh that out a little bit more so that I know how to think about this moving forward.
Yeah, Dr. Lewis approached me during the meeting on Thursday and asked if we would be okay with mediation and a public record of some sort, and I said that we would be. So I think that would be, the details of that would be something to work out, but I think we all want some sort of public record, whether or not it's, I know there's apprehension about this type of setting, and if a live stream would be something that might be more agreeable to Dr. Lewis and his administration, that would be something we would consider.
So are you asking for a conversation to discuss amendments prior to the Confer process starting in October?
We're asking for an amendment before the deadline on May 31st to submit a roster of all the names of DAE members in the district. Because we would not do that.
Okay. And have you already been in communication with administration, with Dr. Lewis about the concerns about
the roster. I think just like kind of to go, I'm not derailing from that question, but just to go back to a previous question, kind of like the clarity about the language, what would be acceptable for our membership. So that particular section, is B2 like that, about certification. It's been a 15-month process that we've been having these conversations about the policy. I heard like everyone in this room knows how long it's been. And I think just speaking from having been one of the original ad hoc team members up until this version of the team, that section really has not been changed from what I understand the whole time. So this was a change that was only made just now. And we, because of the way the end of the process really kind of that collaboration got broken, we did not even see the policy that was brought until Monday night. Because of the rush in timing, because the changes were not tracked, we didn't even notice that pretty significant, like very problematic change until after the vote that was rushed. And so I completely hear Joy, like, we're all tired of this being such a process. You know, so many people in this room and outside of the room have been getting up at 5:30 in the morning to go to bus lots and talk to drivers, you know, to get petition signatures and go to do our job, you know, and then talk to coworkers on lunch break and go to our second job and then go to an OC meeting. I mean, it's been 2 years of fighting like hell and uniting our coworkers to get this policy, and really appreciate you, Joy, and you, Jessica, for really being champions to helping your board members understand it and to coming along with us on that. Like, the experience of having fought so hard to get a policy, only to at the very end be completely shut out of the process, to not be able to present our own side of, like, to be able to represent what actually happened in those last exchanges, to then have a vote happen on a policy we worked so hard for. It felt like such a slap in the face. It felt so demoralizing. And that's exactly what Meet Confer is meant to repair. It's supposed to be a process where we're collaborating, and like we've said for the last year and a half, at the end of the day, we'll take whatever we can get, even if it's like, all right, y'all, there's 3 votes for 30%, and there are 4 votes for 6%. If that's the highest bar, we always said we would have a chance to bring it back to our membership, and for our membership to say, yes, we'll live with that, or no, that's not good enough. And we, at the end of the day, we need to be able to make that choice. We were cut out of being able to actually bring it back to our membership, and that's unacceptable, and that is why this is an ask right now, because what we got on Thursday was so disrespectful and it was horrible. It was the most horrible. I mean, people, we were like, I know we were crying. It was just not a victory because of the way we were not able to actually, you know, say, we're good with this, we can live with this. And so that's what we're asking. We want to go back. What we got on Thursday was so close. It was so close, and there are 2 big things that are a big problem. We have asked not to say this is good enough for now. We want to get back to the room with Dr. Lewis. We're willing to do that, not in a public way that's public by either being live streamed or having a public record of it for afterwards. But that's the ask, and that's what we like to do. We're going to accept what we have and wait till later to change it. We really want to get back to the room to be able to have a process that's collaborative, that our members can say yes or no. That is the whole fundamental core of Confer.
I hear you. I also wanted this season that we could all celebrate at the end of it. It was my sense. What I read was communication that indicated, both written and verbal, communication that indicated an unwillingness to meet again until certain conditions were met. And again, we've talked about this at length. I would love to have seen y'all go back to the table.
I did not see that. I did not see that that was possible.
And I say that caring deeply about this process and about this policy. If I saw a path, and again, all we can do is make the best decision possible with the information we have at that moment. And as I'm looking back, spent time sifting through previous versions of the policy over the past few days while I'm reflecting on this, all the communications back and forth, it was my assessment. And I did not know about the conversation between Dr. Lewis at the meeting, but also that feels very broad to me and like it's not a decision, it's not agreed upon terms like we had discussed for what that meeting would look like. I wanted that meeting to happen, but I don't know that that is the best way to move forward now. But I'm hearing you all tonight and I'm reflecting on that and I want this to be something that we can celebrate. And I also would like for, and I saw in your communication today that there was some celebration. I'd like more acknowledgement of all the work that's been put into this and what has been won. Albeit not exactly what we had all wanted from the beginning. Because in compromise, pieces are lost, and sometimes you have to start somewhere and build on that once you see how that works and once you start building trust back.
I just want to say, I agree that the process that landed us where we are was insane. I also feel the urgency of something greater looming over our heads. And if we cannot work the process where we are, we cannot move forward to where we are right now, these other big fish that we have to fry, we delay that work as well. Like, we really need to get to a collaborative conversation at this point. We really do. So what I hope can happen is that things like this, understanding comes from conversation. Hearing you express and giving why, how that happened and what was missed, and that vote going so quickly. I'm like, oh, that's important. I want to know, is Dr. Lewis aware of that, of that change like that at the last minute? Because what I'm not understanding, so that happened. I'm wanting to know where that shift was made. And at the same time, as we correct it, if we see if we can correct that before May 31st when that has to be done, because that, that's major. So I'm wanting to know, is he aware of this? Has he heard this argument? Number one. I'm wanting to know, do you have to have a meeting with a mediator in order to, or is that really a conversation? And I'm really, beyond this thing of people not being able to talk to people. I'm just saying, publicly or otherwise, both sides. That is something that I'm challenged to understand. And we have a meeting confer process that can be amended. Where we go with this right now, the tone of how we, acknowledging that was jacked up. But where we move at this point can or cannot cause further harm for us being able to tackle some big fish that we need to tackle right now. So what I'm saying is, I don't want to continue to have this battle of communication. I don't do that. I don't want to keep having this argument of who's going to meet and where they're going to meet and how we're going to talk about it. I want to heal and use this process to tackle all of these things that we really need to tackle with the overwhelming, federal administration, state, General Assembly, all of these things that are coming at us. That is the work that we need to be centering. So I don't want to undo our meeting and confer process, but I hear this thing, about privacy and the lists. Can we send that information to the superintendent and say, hey, can he receive it? And can we make that amendment without it being too combative? We really have to do some healing work in this moment so that we can take care of all of the living things.
I just thank you for that, kind of rundown. I think in this whole process, there's also been a game of telephone that's taking place. So it was my understanding that there had been an offer of a mediator and it was turned down. I don't know if that's true or not. That was my understanding, so I think it was how do we figure out how to move this path forward? Because, I said this in our budget meetings often, I need our educators at the table. We should be thinking about how we can, even if we don't have a policy, get something done, earlier this year. And so I think it feels frustrating to be at this point, so low to get so far. And the person also told me that when real compromise happens, everyone walks away from the table mad. I was like, there's something to that. And so I'm reflecting and trying to figure out what is our path forward. I think we've heard clearly from you. We might need to hear clearly from other folks and then figure out what's the path.
We do have to get out of here because of the custodial staff, but I just want to say, I think right now we're at a decision point where we either heal together or we heal separately. And two of you were open to mediation on last Thursday. And yeah, there has been a lot of telephone, and that's why we do have some non-negotiables of how we'll show up at a meeting, where there's going to be a record of it, and it's going to be public, and there's going to be people to see it, because we're tired of playing telephone. And what we got on Thursday was sitting and watching people tell a version of their history of how meet and confer with them, with a policy that the workers didn't get to see. It could be an amendment. It could be a process that we come back together. Dr. Lewis was emailed today about that certification process. It didn't seem, no, I'm not going to say that, but I will say that we do need to get out of here so that we can respect the custodial staff that's about to work. We do appreciate you coming this evening, and we hope that you'll urge your colleagues to come to the meeting next Monday.
And we need as many people as possible to help keep that room